Opening statements in the first ever criminal trial of a former president are set to begin on Monday. Donald Trump will return to a Manhattan courtroom as prosecutors present their arguments in the New York hush money case. But before they can begin, Trump is hitting the campaign trail, holding a rally in North Carolina later today. And this comes after a dramatic final day of jury selection. But a process that was expected to take weeks was over in just days after the judge yesterday swore in 12 jurors as well as 6 alternates. Let's discuss all this with CNN contributor and former Nixon White House counsel John Dean. John, thank you so much for being with us. Big picture, a jury was just seated for the first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president. You, of course, know a thing or two about big political moments. So what do you make of this moment ahead of those opening statements on Monday?
There's going to be a lot of focus on this trial worldwide because it is a unique situation. And the government is going to lay out its case. As you said, there will be opening statements, and the government will paint a picture of behavior that it thinks is criminal. So that's what Mr. Trump is in for, and the world is waiting to hear that story because while we think we know it, the prosecutors will have facts we don't know.
And John, so much focus also on the jurors who will have the fate of the former president in their hands. We now have the final jury seated, but there were also 2 potential jurors who were excused yesterday after telling the judge that the trial was too stressful. One even began crying in the courtroom. So how high are the stakes for these men and women on the jury?
I think they realize the height and the focus on this jury is because they know they're going to be anonymous. And the courtroom is empty, excepting for the jury. The press is really not covering it other than through an outside room with television cameras that closed circuit show the proceedings. So they sense something is unusual. And then they, of course, see the former president of the United States sitting there and know that, this is a very savvy jury pool and jury that emerged because New York is well educated and fairly attentive to these kinds of events and knows the significance of what's going on.
In addition to those 12, we have these 6 alternates. But given how high profile and high stakes this trial is, do you think that 6 is enough?
Good question. I think this weekend will tell us if there's a problem with those that were seated already. Obviously, they'll come in and tell the judge they have a problem or they think they've been identified. It's very unusual to have an anonymous jury. That happened during Watergate at some of the big trials. They were sequestered juries that were really anonymous and remained anonymous for decades. Only a few who wanted to be identified ever came forward. So it is a new tension for them. There are a group of strangers that are getting together to make a very big decision. So it's got to be certain stress levels that they're not used to.
And certainly there are going to be plenty of people who are trying to uncover their identities. And John, prosecutors have refused to reveal the witness list with the defense, and they're citing Trump's previous tweets about witnesses. Judge Merchan says that he won't be forcing them to hand it over. Do you think the judge made the right move?
I think he did. He was sending a message in that move that indeed he agreed that Mr. Trump could abuse the information. So they've withheld until very late on Sunday night. They're apparently going to give the first witness that the government is going to call. But the protocol is, and the courtesy is normally to provide who your first 3 or 6 witnesses might be so that the defense can prepare and be ready for cross-examination. Because of Trump's tweets, because his effort to influence the proceedings through out-of-court statements, he has put them as potential targets. So they want to be very careful. And the government is exercising its right not to be courteous because Trump is not paying that favor back.
There is this major question hanging over all this, whether the former president will take the stand. If you were advising him, would you tell him to?
It's very unusual for a defendant to take the stand because, particularly in a situation like Donald Trump, where he is known to be a terrible witness. His depositions are bad. His few court appearances have been disasters. It would just be almost inconceivable that he do so, and very high theater should he choose to. Somewhat suicidal, actually, because it opens him up to cross-examination on everything relating to his character and truthfulness. And we know he's pretty vulnerable in that area.
Well, one thing is certain, it is going to be a remarkable and historic week. John Dean, thanks so much for your thoughts today.
Thanks, Alex.